Happy Thursday, everyone. It's Thursday, May 15th, 2 o'clock Eastern. That means stream's starting. Today's topic is going to be mastering and Atmos mixes for my album, Vacuum State, which is out tonight at midnight. So if you're digital, you can listen to it tonight at midnight, the whole thing from start to finish, as many times as you want. It's happening. So yeah, I don't know if anyone's going to join. People joining in. Great. Awesome. Welcome. Starkey here, and let's dive right into it. I've been mixing and producing all day and in Zoom meetings, so my day's been just crazy, but I stopped like 10 minutes ago. It was like, all right, we got to do this. So here's the record. Just reminding you, if you want to pick up the vinyl, you can get it from Android's Dungeon Radio on Bandcamp. And yeah, we've done a breakdown of all of my songs. Whoa, record dropping. We've done a breakdown of all of my songs. And we're going to listen to one of the remixes today as we talk about mastering. And I'm going to try my best to explain what we did for Atmos mixing on this project. So if anyone's interested in that, it's going to happen. So for today, I picked the CESRV remix. And this is a really diverse, very cool producer from Brazil. If you've not listened to his music before, he does grime-ish stuff, hip-hop-ish stuff. He's just a really, really strong producer, really cool. We've been in touch for a number of years. I can't even remember when we started chatting, but I said, hey, I'm working on this project. Would you be down to do a remix? And he was like, yeah, let's do it. And so I let the remixers pick what track they wanted to do. I provided them with all the stems, and this is what he came up with. It is a remix of Burnt. If you remember, Burnt is go back and watch the breakdown of Burnt. I'm not going to open up this session right now, but it's a pretty erratic tune. And what he did was basically turn it into a garage beat. For lack of better words, I mean, it feels like a garage beat. And it's cool. It's fun. It stripped it back, took like the main elements of the track, and it's got a breakdown here in the middle, second drop. But it's pretty much the same as the first. It's got a little bit of different feel to it. Swing is really strong. So I'm going to play it with the mastering chain. Now, I've been mastering records for a very long time here. I'm going to turn this off for a second. I do a lot of mastering for lots of labels, and my mastering in the box, chain has changed so much over the years. And this one isn't even my newest one. This was mastered earlier this year, and I've since changed. Actually, this was mastered the end of 2024, and I've since added some things and removed some things from my mastering chain. I also will sometimes use some hardware as well, which I'll talk about. I have an analog heat here, electron analog heat, that I sometimes will run things through just to add a little bit of grit, a little bit of saturation. And at Community College of Philadelphia, I have access to a Weiss DS1 Mark III, a real one, not the plug-in. But I kind of like the plugin. I like a real one too. It's cool, but I like the plugin as well. So we're gonna talk about that today. So let me bring this back here and let's roll. Here it is. So yeah, that's the remix. I hope you like it. I like it. It's a fun, just like I said, straightforward, garagey swing beat. So yeah, shouts to Smooth JP joining in, and Drucker joining in. Thanks for listening in. Today we're gonna talk about mastering, and we're gonna talk about Atmos mixes. So here's what we got going on. Like I said, I changed my setup a lot. So the biggest misconception with like mastering a lot is that you need a lot of headroom, and you don't really need a lot of headroom. You just don't really want to limit the record. Like if an artist or an engineer or whoever it is mixing a record and they have compression on the master fader, that's fine if that's helping to glue the track together. Like, you know, if I was mixing on an SSL console, I'd be running it through a bus compressor. It's just, the important thing is to not take out all the dynamics from the master. So let the mastering engineer do that. And I've gotten records where they limited it and they still want me to master it, and it becomes more challenging job. But you don't need like 10 dB of headroom. That's the one thing. Like, if you give me headroom, I'm gonna jack up the volume, which is what I did here a little bit. So let's talk about the chain right now. So this is it. I'm gonna move my camera. Actually, I'm gonna just move the because I know you guys can't see this as well. So I'm just gonna move my screen here so you can see with a little bit better with my camera. So this is the chain that I open, and this is my Starkey Vice DS1 Mark III master from August 2024. So that was the preset that I pulled up when I started working on this project. If I zoom in, you guys see that? No, you won't see that. So I'm just trying to see if I can zoom OBS live so you can see a little bit better. But all right. So the first thing I have on here is a Mag EQ, and it's not on for this track. And recently I put a Pultec there, but this is basically to add extra top end if the record needs it. So that air band, I'm not using it in this track because it doesn't need it, but it's there in case I need it. And like I said, I recently switched to a Pultec EQ. I'm using the UAD one, which I kind of like a little bit more right now. I can get a lot of the same things that I would want to do on the top end, plus also mess with the bottom end if it needs it as well. The next thing I do is I run the track usually, again, this is usually, through an Oxford inflator. Now this is like my default setting. It's usually around 40%, and then the curve is somewhere in the positive range. And if you've ever like hovered your mouse and read these things, the curve in the positive range says it modifies the processing characteristics and sonic effect between 0 and plus 50, providing fatness and volume enhancement. Despite rendering the signal significantly louder, the impression of considerable dynamic range is retained. Settings between 0 and negative 50 produce the most subtle changes to the sound. So I'm pushing it up a little bit. So I'm dealing with that fatness characteristic and just pushing it a little bit. So that's the first part. And the effect right now is on, it's like I said, I usually start around 40%. This plugin does wonders. I always tell people about it if they're not familiar with it. It sounds amazing on acoustic instruments. You can put it on a guitar, like a classical guitar or acoustic guitar, and it sounds incredible. It just kind of brings out presence and richness without adding compression. It's top tier. I'm using it in band split mode, which, as you can see, it offers an additional mode. When band splitting is selected, the processing is split into 3 frequency bands to avoid intermodulation distortion. This mode is sometimes advantageous when there's a relatively high amount of low, mid, or high frequency content. So because I'm using this on the master and it's processing everything, that's why I'm using the split band. Now, if you were only processing something on an individual track basis, you may get better results by turning the band split off. Now, the clip function is basically, with it off, it's allowing the volume to actually go above 0 dB. So you can actually intersamply inside the computer's processing get better peak levels by turning the clipping off. And I'm sure if you have a big enough screen you zoom in, you can read this. But that's like my normal start point. I've done a little bit of effect adding here. Yo, if it's on sale over at the Plugin Boutique, if inflator, I'm running it. So this is the UAD version, as you can see. So this one was a little bit more expensive, but if it's on sale for $20, you should 100% get it. So it looks like the limiter's on sale, but not the inflator, at least for me. So maybe, Draco, you're getting a different look because you're in Europe, so the prices might be different. But I'm seeing the limiter, which I do also have here. It's just not being used on this record. But this thing usually drops around $20, and you should get it. It's really useful. It's one of those like top 3 best plugins ever. It's Inflator, Basement, and FabFilter Pro Q are my choices. So Euro price is 42 euros. Yeah, I mean, I don't know what it normally is. I'm not sure if that's like a good sale price or not. But I would recommend this plugin above most other things. It's not a sexy plugin. It's not like, oh yeah, it's not like buying like, I don't know, Portal or Thermal or one of those output plugins where you're like, oh cool, you know, I'm gonna make my record sound wild. It's not that. It just does really good things. Next I've got Ozone, and I've gone through years and years and years and versions and versions and versions of Ozone. Right now, I think this is version 10. I think there's like 11 or 12. I just don't have the most recent version. To be honest, I'm kind of getting sick of some of these companies that constantly are coming out with new versions. They're like Apple. They feel like they need to release a new iPhone every year. You know, there's like every year there's a new OS. Every year there's a new version of Ozone, when like, I don't know. I don't know. It seems kind of greedy or whatever. But yeah, so I haven't updated recently. So this is 10. You can see here that, and again, my feelings with Ozone is it does some things really well, but I've gone through phases. I used to use it as my brick wall limiter, and I don't anymore. I don't think it sounds as good, so I don't. So I've gone through phases here. You can see there's some things that I'm not using either. So the first thing is an EQ. I'm pretty much set on using mid-side EQ for all of my mastering EQ now. I really like it. I use the mid-side so that basically you're processing what's in the center channel, which is the thing that's the same in the left and right channels, separate from everything that's on the sides. And this was also mastered for vinyl, so you can't have stereo width to your bass on vinyl, or else your needle will literally jump off of the record. So we can't have that. So again, I'm using the mid-side EQ, as you can see here, to shelf down the side channel, which is everything that's not in the middle. And I'm doing that so that I can focus the bass. Some people would use an imager and do it there. Like they'll go to the first channel on their imager and mono it. I don't usually do that. I use the side channel of the mid side and pull it down. So that's the first thing. This track is pretty bright. The mix is pretty bright. So I don't really have much of a shelf or band boost here. Sometimes I open up the sides so that it actually makes the record seem wider. So just by brightening up the side channels, instead of using artificial width enhancement, it makes it seem wider. But I didn't really do that. This is like practically bypassed. Now my mid channel is everything that's up the center. So this is going to be, for a lot of like pop records, it's going to be like hip hop, or hip hop, sorry, pop records, electronic music. The kick, the snare, the lead vocal, there might be some elements, but like that's what's down the center. And for this track, I actually ended up boosting a shelf into my high pass filter for the bottom end. I usually start with this many bands. So you can see here there's 8 bands. There's a low pass and a high pass on the top. And then there's a shelf that goes into the low pass and a high pass at the top and the bottom. So that way I can dip into the high pass or boost into the high pass, depending on if the record needs more bass or less bass. Almost always I have a band that I'm doing something with around the 250 to 300 hertz range. And in this record, I'm barely doing anything. I'm just doing -4, but it's there, and I just kind of left it there. There is a dip here in the center channel around 5K. Now that is only 2.2 dB, so it's not a lot. But it's not happening in the side channels. So again, there were some frequencies in the middle that I needed to pull back, and I'm leaving those frequencies out in the side channels. So that's basically the curve, and this is only really treating the kick and the snare and anything else that's up the center, hi-hats, etc. So there was probably with the break, you know, the kind of garage drum break that he's built here, there was something in the top end that was just kind of, I don't know, bothering me a little. So we pulled that volume back. Now next I have a dynamic EQ on, and I'm gonna just pull the volume back so we can see what this is doing, but not hear it. And you can see that I have 2 bands, one at the very bottom and one at the very top. Now the one I want to focus on is the bottom one. And I usually use a band shelf to help control the bottom end. And this is a dynamic EQ, just like you could find on FabFilter Pro Q or something like that now. And it is pulling back those extreme bottom end frequencies when it just kind of builds up. And it's only like a dB and a half, just hoping to tame that top end. Now on the top here, I'm not really doing anything with this. This is at 0.3, but it does potentially just tame a little bit of anything at the very top end. But this is very, very, very small and insignificant. Now notice I'm doing this in stereo mode, so it's treating both the left and right channels identical at the same time. Don't mind the clips here. There could be some clipping. Liam, thanks for joining. You said it's like Pro Q4. Yes, so Pro Q4 adopted dynamic EQ. Actually, Pro Q3 did. And so this is just that, but inside Ozone. So the dynamic EQ is a separate EQ from the regular EQ as a module. So like with Ozone, you can add modules and then rearrange them. So that's what I've got going on here. Next, I have a low-end focus on, and you can see that these two things are kind of like playing off of each other. So the dynamic EQ is really trying to pull down those extreme bottom end frequencies like 40 hertz, 30 hertz, etc. And again, a lot of that is coming from this boost that I did just to open up the bottom end. But then this is focusing between 60 and 181 hertz and just adding a little bit of punchiness to the signal. So this is going to try to bring out some of that. Let's see if we can. I'm going to remove all of the rest of the processing. I don't know how much this comes across depending on how you're monitoring. But all this does is help to pull out that kick drum, just a hair. I could have probably brought this frequency up a little bit, and then we just have the kick being punched. But I didn't. I had it down around 60. You hear how it's like, if you're listening on good speakers or headphones, you can hear that the bass is there, but that sub bass is hitting even lower. So it's really just trying to bring out the kick drum a little bit. I'm gonna bring the volume down. And then what I did was, with the imager, I didn't do anything. It's basically bypassed. Sometimes I use the RL Exciter if the track needs it, and usually I'll just do it at the top end. So I'll create a multi-band, usually like 3 bands, and then I'm bypassing the bottom, and I'm just using the top bands in the triode and dual triode on the extreme top end. This is if the track needs a little bit more punch in the snare drum, I'll use this. And if it needs some openness in the top end, I'll use this dual triode. Sometimes with jazz records, funny enough, I find that I need to bring out a little bit of top end. If I didn't mix it, sometimes things sound so dark on some jazz records that I've mastered, and I find that I need to bring it out. Now, sometimes I'll do that with the Mag EQ as well, but it's it just helps to kind of open up the top. So that's the chain here in Ozone that I'm using for this. And I'm just doing basically EQ enhancement using Ozone. I'm not doing anything else. There's no compression. If you count dynamic EQ as compression, then I guess yes, but there's no other compression going on. Then what I've got going on is a Soothe 2 channel. This was based off of a preset that's called Leaving Mid-Range Alone. And I remember finding this preset and kind of being happy with it, but then manipulating it a little bit. So if you're not familiar with Soothe 2, it's a frequency resonance suppressor. And what it does is it pulls back resonant frequencies, just kind of like FabFilter Pro Q4 does now. And there's other plugins. Sleek, I think, is the Hornet one that does that. Some people in chat. Oh, just Jay's calling out someone in the Twitch chat. Sorry, I'm trying to keep track of these things. So Soothe 2 is basically just adding some noise suppression. So let me talk over this and play it. If we want to hear what it's pulling back, we can listen to the delta. And this will play what's being removed. And as you can see here, this section in here from about like 500 to 2K is practically unaffected, right? Now, of course, there's a curve to it, but this curve here is keeping that mid-range from being affected by Soothe. And so the bottom end is not being accentuated at all. So when you push one of these things up on this plugin, it actually accentuates the reduction, as you can see here in the waveform. So I'm not accentuating any of the reduction in the bass, but I am pulling just any kind of frequencies that are ringing out too much. And notice I'm on the ultra setting here for the quality. There are, that's for playback, but for the offline mode, you can go as high as 4 times oversampling. So that means when you render the actual file, as long as you're doing an offline render, it'll do it at 4 times. If you use any hardware, though, in your mastering chain, you have to do a real-time bounce. So you can't do any of that oversampling unless your computer can handle it. So you can run it at 2 or 4 times in real time. Just note that. A lot of people don't realize what that's for. Like I said, I have an analog heat here. So sometimes before I hit Soothe, and even right after the EQ here, I'll place the Electron analog heat, which is basically a saturation box. If you're not familiar with it, they actually have a newer version, which I have the older version. but it is a pretty cool. This is the Plus Effects one. This is the one I don't have. I have the original one, but it converts the signal to analog, does the processing, and then does another digital conversion and puts it back into your signal chain. So it's like basically running as a plugin on the screen, but it's happening in real time analog on the device. So you can only use one channel of it, right? Because you only have one module. Drakra said, Soothe 2 has my name on it now. I want and need. Yeah, I mean, if you have FabFilter Pro Q4, I gotta be honest with you, it's really good. There are some benefits, I think, to Soothe, and I'm still trying to figure all of that out as I go. But this was around before Pro Q, and it just became one of those things where I was just like, all right, I need this. Because it really does help. It helps, like, I use it a lot going back to acoustic guitar. If I'm mixing a record that has acoustic guitar, and there's some like ringing resonances from like the finger movement and anything else that's going on, I use Soothe 2 to help with that. There are some isotope plugins in RX that can help with that kind of stuff too, but Soothe 2 does a really good job with that. The question in the chat is, can analog heat go as far as full-blown destruction? Oh yeah, let me turn it on. Let's hope it watch something goes nuts. It's like, wait, what are you doing? All right, so it runs this in the background here. This is called Overbridge. I haven't updated a version, so basically this is running in the background. So let's move Soothe 2 down, and we'll put analog heat in. Two of my good friends, Eprom and Alex Perez. I don't know if you know them. They make music under the name Shade. They were the ones who actually told me to get this. We were having dinner one night in Philly, this is years ago, and I was like, we're just nerding out, like, you know, talking about kit and like stuff, and I'm like, hey, you guys, you know, get any cool plugins or anything cool lately? And they're like, honestly, the coolest piece of kit that I've gotten in a while is the analog heat. And I was like, oh yeah, I've seen it, you know. They're like, dude, get it. And yeah, so I did. So basically you have a plugin that is interfacing with the device. Now there's a bunch of companies that do this stuff now. They do love their distortion, and EPROM's record Truth is like one of the best sounding records of the past like 5 years. So basically this is running in real time. These controls are controlling the hardware, so I can physically, like, here, watch, I'm gonna click through the different distortions. I can also do that with the hardware. Oh great, it's not working. Why are we not working? See, I knew something was going to be wrong. Something was going to get messed up. Active. Why is it not working? See, I just changed a bunch of stuff in my studio, and I haven't used this in a second. So now, watch. Something with the cable is not connected or something like that. Oh, here it is. Did I move it? Damn it. I may have unplugged it. I haven't used it in a couple days, so that's why I'm saying I don't know where this cable's going. Sorry, guys. But yeah. But anyways, if this was working, I don't know. Electron. Overbridge. Yeah, the device is not showing up. Why aren't you showing up? Am I running OBS and Logic on the same system? Yes. Smooth J. Yes, I am. It's not connecting. I probably unplugged it by accident, is what's going on. I'm running in the same system. Hey, what's up? Queen Rocky, TTV, welcome. Hey, Ace Platinum, welcome. You got to the nerd part of the day where someone asked me to do something and for some reason it's not working. But anyways, promise you, Drocker, as you go up, there's a clean boost setting, saturation enhancement, mid-drive. Then it keeps getting nastier and nastier. So there's 8 different modes. And then there's an analog filter, which is a multi-mode filter. It can be high pass, low pass, band pass, etc. A notch. There's an envelope follower, which is really cool as well. And the envelope follower can be applied to lots of different things. You can have it go to the drive. You can have it go to the EQ, the filter frequency, the resonance. It's a really cool piece of kit. Watch some videos on it. I wish I could show it. Maybe next stream, we'll get this thing hooked up. The funny thing is, I was actually going to use it on a mix that I'm working on after this. So I'm going to have to get it working as soon as this stream is over. All right. So let me go back to this. Hello, new human, Queen Rocky TTV says. And is that Pikachu? Yeah, fun. These streams are going to cost me a fortune. Yeah, obviously work within your budget. All right, so next I have, this is a Pro Q3. And the reason why it's Pro Q3 is because I made this preset before I think Pro Q4 came out, and I'm not doing anything other than some dynamic processing. I'm, again, using this for multiple bands to help tame the bottom end. So if I play the track, you can see this one's bypass. Sometimes I use a dynamic EQ to help boost the snare. But here, this is just helping to pull back some bass control. And the whole time I'm doing this, I do have, I usually have the tonal balance control open, so I can look at, typical mixes of what it'll look like and what the curve will look like. Right now, you can see it's a little bright. Sometimes my records are a little bright compared, if you're looking at that, and obviously referencing other records at the same time. Now it gets into the more experimental part of the process. The first thing I almost always do is I run my audio through the newfangled Elevate. This is a mastering suite. This is barely doing anything, but what it's doing, it does really well, and it makes things just kind of tighten up. So there are 4 modules here. There's a filter bank, which I'm basically doing nothing with right now. There is what they call the limiter EQ. So each channel has its own band, and you can have your own gain selection for each one of these bands. And then you can also have what they refer to as adaptive gain. And if you hover over, it says, in each band can vary. Potentially louder output may affect tonal balance. So what you can do is have these various limiter bands be reacting to the incoming audio. Think of it about it like a hypercharged multi-band processor, right? So you can see all the different channels and how they're coming through. It's a moat land right now. So again, I'm not doing anything with the filter bank, but you can adjust the ranges of the filters. I'm not really doing anything with this other than just boosting a little bit of gain and adding some adaptive gain so it's reacting to the incoming levels. Let me know if the music's too loud. I'm trying to keep the volume down a little bit so I can talk over it. And then there's a transient enhancer. And this is, again, has adaptive transient. Think of this as a hypercharged multi-band transient enhancer. So instead of having like 1 band or 4 bands, you get all of these bands. I'm not even going to count them. And what I'm doing is I'm emphasizing a little bit more of that transient. And this is going to then hit a clipper. So there's no limiting happening. Clipping is distortion. A lot of people get it confused. They think like clipping and limiting, they're kind of the same thing. They're very different. Clipping is distortion. It's has no dynamic processing or control happening. Although it does affect dynamics, it is a distortion that's happening to the signal. So I've got this transient enhancement. Then I'm doing just a little bit of clipping. Okay, so this is controlling my dynamic range, but I'm not doing much. I'm not like hitting this really hard. If you take this off, I'm gonna put the volume up. I added 0.2 dB of gain, but the song just kind of jumps out at you. I'll do it again. Here's on. It just feels vibey, right? So the kick gets enhanced. You can use this as like a full-fledged mastering, processing platform, but I'm not doing that. I'm like using each plugin for what I like to use it for and not trying to overload things too much. Then the next section is pretty interchangeable. So I almost always use the Weiss DS1 Mark III. This is the plugin version that's made by Softtube. It's great. It's expensive, but get it, and it's on sale, and it's not that expensive. I sometimes will use the Oxford limiter when I feel like, I don't know, this isn't doing it for me. But I've recently been mostly using Pro L as my final. All this is doing is just making sure that this thing is true peak limiting. So let me talk about the Pro L2 first. You can see here that the settings are basically not much is happening. All this is doing is 8 times oversampling and true peak limiting. If I have to dither, I'll dither here, but for the most part, dithering is gone. Unless you're really mixing for CDs, I don't ever talk to any clients that want records dithered anymore. When you master at 24 bits or whatever it is that you're working at, and you keep it at that now. So that's what this is doing. All of the boost in volume is coming from the Weiss DS1 Mark III. So this is the amount of volume increase that we're getting. So if I look at my meter, obviously my LUFS levels are hard to see. We didn't have the intro of the song, but right now it's at -14. If I put on the Weiss DS1 Mark III, so this section of the song is around -8. I tend to find that with my music and a lot of the music that I'm doing that's like club records or electronic music, I like to go around -7. So I bet you if you take this entire record, it ends up being around there for the long-term LUFS levels. You do get a volume penalty on some streaming platforms, but that's not important, I don't think, personally, or at least right now. But that's where I start to hear things are going to start breaking up. So if you push it above -7, you start to get into the territory of things are completely squashed and you have no dynamic control whatsoever. So the Weiss DS1 Mark III is basically operating in 2 stages right now, as a compressor and a brick wall limiter. You can also use this as a de-esser too. You can basically apply this only to certain bands. So you can basically set a band and have this do suppression there, just like a de-esser it does. There's actually a standalone de-esser plugin that they made that's a version of this, which is kind of fun. It comes with it if you buy it. You can also have a standalone compressor version of the plugin as well. So it's right here. So this is the standalone compressor version that you get if you buy the package. So I'm running this in parallel mode, so it's letting the dry signal right in, and it's processing it in parallel. It's processing the entire signal because I have the frequency and bandwidth off. So this is full. So these buttons, these knobs here are doing absolutely nothing. They're off. You can view the waveform. This is unique to the plugin. This isn't available on the hardware. So I can actually see a gain reduction signal path here, or frequency display. This is the display on the hardware. This is basically what you get. So what's going on here? This is the compressor. So you have your input gain. Right now it's at 0 because I don't need to gain it up. I have my limiter. This is the brick wall limiter. So what they call the safe limiter, that's on. And I'm gaining into it 1.6 dB. That's after the compressor. So here's the compression. Here's the limiting. This is happening last. The way it's organized is like backwards. So this is the compressor and here's the limiter. This is showing you the amount of gain that's coming off of the limiter. So if I go to the input here and start turning this knob, I'm going to push more volume into the compressor, which is then going to feed into the limiter because I have the safe limiter on. Now you actually have more gain out of the limiter on the plugin than you do on the hardware. On the hardware, the gain sweep, I believe, is only 6 dB. On this, you have a crazy amount. It might be 12, but it's definitely less. I've come across that when I'm using the hardware. So that's one advantage of this. Also, another advantage, if you will, of the plugin is that there are 3 limiter types. So this is kind of like if you've ever used Ozone's limiters and you can change the style of the limiting. This is the default one that's on the hardware, which is the DS1, and then they have 2 other types. I'm not going to try to pretend like I know exactly what they are off the top of my head. If I remember correctly, I believe type 2 is a true peak, but type 1 isn't. So but again, I'd have to look at the manual. But I'm using type 1 right now, and the reason why that's part of the reason why I have the Pro L2 after. So the Pro L2 is doing the true peak limiting. This is doing no gain adjustment, no boosting. This is just making sure that my clipping and my limiting at the top is not going to distort in the analog domain. So you can see I'm doing about 2.5 dB of compression, and then the limiter is peaking out at like -8. -8 might seem high, but this thing can really handle it. And again, we're running it in parallel mode, and it does a really good job of honing in the bass by allowing you to push the volume up and not getting distortion. That's why I've been using this lately as my go-to. So it just sounds good. If I turn that off, I can show you like what I might do with the Oxford limiter. I'm trying to volume match them as close as possible. Again, I didn't use this in this track, but you can hear the difference, especially if you're on speakers or good headphones. They sound very different. So sometimes I will use this just because of the style of the record, but more often than not, I'm using this. So the one thing I want to emphasize here is that these things are fluid. You do what the record needs. But ever since I got the newfangled Elevate, I don't do multiband compression on my masters anymore. I just stopped. I used to use multiband compression and and now I let this do that a little bit. And then I hit it with the parallel compression. So we're hearing the dry and this compressed signal blended together. And that's it. The rest of these things are just meters. So like different meters. But that's what the record, that's how where I get my mastering chain, at least as it is right now. So this is how it is. Don't worry about these red. This is just because it's set to like broadcast levels, and it's like, you're loud, you're gonna get in trouble. All I care about is this number here. Yeah, so if I'm doing a bunch of records, these are some of the other remixes here. I'll do them in a session, and I'll save the session, and then start. Obviously all these are different producers, different levels, but I still have like a starting place. This is what I almost always use right now. All right, so I'm gonna pivot here and open up a different session. So let me close out of this. And I'm going to open up the Atmos mixing session. Now, when we did the Atmos mixes for this project, I did them originally on speakers. I'm going to try and pull up a picture for you guys. Sorry, I'm not prepared. Come on. All right, I think this is fine. All right, here we go. So this is, obviously this was an event that we had, but this is the Genelec Atmos system. And you know what, do I have... Come on. Come on. Can kind of see here. Come on. Pictures. Here's a picture. Here's a video. So this is the room. So that's Ben O'Neill and Revolver, and this is them mixing his remix, which actually just came out a little bit ago. So this is the room. So I mixed it in this space and then had to translate it over to binaural. I really don't like Atmos unless it's in speakers. I find it to be... Yeah, have fun, Jocker. Have a good night. See ya. It's been so I don't. It's a really nice experience sitting in a great room and listening to Atmos, but binaurally, I don't know. I just don't think it's interesting. I don't really like it. It's great for video games when you're like trying to like pinpoint where things are happening if you're wearing headphones, but I don't know. Not really into it yet. I think it'll get better, but... So what we're going to be talking about here is the renderer. So what I first did this It was in the 7.1.4 setup because that's the setup we have. So it's 7 level speakers, sub, and then 4 height speakers. And these are our beds. So the beds are the actual speakers, and then the objects are placements within the beds. So with Atmos, there's 2 different ways you can place things. You can place them in a bed location, or you can create a 3D object and have that 3D object move around. Again, this process is still very strange, and I don't even know if I really like. It's a lot of work for what it is. If you look here on the plugins, right, I have a Pro L2 going into the Atmos processor, and then I have a loudness meter. The Pro L2 is only going to process things that are in the beds. It's not going to process anything that's an object. So mastering Atmos is also a kind of a headache. It's more of a mix process with a pseudo mastering that's going on. We tend to use, and I'm going to pull this up then, the Atmos album assembler to do some last minute processing on the records. And this is a misconception. A lot of people think that they can put a compressor or limiter or something here, and that all of the Atmos mixes or parts, tracks will get processed, and that's not the case. So you can see there's a combination. These are all the stems. This is the track Equinox. And if you're wearing headphones, you should be able to get the binaural mix. It's going to be a little quiet because Atmos also needs to be quieter. You're shooting for a -18 lux level. So you can see this, like, there's also a bug with Logic. See how it says 0? Right? See that angle 0? If I double click and open this, it makes it -2. This is a Logic bug. I don't know why they haven't fixed it yet. Like, come on, Apple, you have to know this exists. So when you are mixing, you don't ever want to open up the panners. You just want to click tracks and have it change the panner. So basically what you do is you link it so that when you change the track, it changes the panner, so you don't have to reopen it. Just a tip or trick if you're using Logic to do mixing. It's really frustrating. So once I open one, I fix it, and then I start from there. So if we look at this, for bass management, I'm using a bus. So I'm using bus 1 here in the bottom corner, which is feeding into my LFE channel. Obviously, binaural, that's not doing anything. But if you are dealing with an LFE, this is working on my bass bus. These were some of the first mixes I did in Atmos, just learning how to do it. And it's, again, it's a little frustrating. I've turned the volume up so we're clipping. Well, I closed it. So this sound effect bus has a lot of automation on it. You can see things moving. this is slightly elevated, right? This synth part. You can hear. You're wearing headphones. It's just not great. It's not. Look, if you listen in a room with speakers, you get the full experience. You don't get the full experience on headphones. I'm sorry. It's not as cool. And it's more work. It's a lot of work. Like hours and hours and hours of mixing these records and getting levels right, as you're about to see, just to have a handful of people who, listen to Tidal or Apple Music or whatever, enjoy the records. It's really fun to be sitting in the room, but that's a one-time experience. It's not every day. Hey, welcome Diagonal 101. Hopefully I pronounced it correctly. Thanks for joining. I hope I close this. Like, that stuff's cool, the motion. But I don't know, is that this? Yeah. So this is, I picked Equinox just because this is another track that we've done already. Okay, so once you do the mix, right, and this is again from stems because the track is already mixed in stereo. This wasn't done like intentionally. We're gonna mix Atmos and then we're gonna mix it down to stereo. These were done as stereo records that then got spit out to Atmos. So when you're exporting this, right, you're gonna export the entire project, right? You're gonna as an ADM BWF, and that's gonna be your multi-track Atmos playback. All right, so I'm gonna quit this. And I'm going to pull up one other thing. So I'm going to pull up the album render. And I just want to make sure they don't have anything stupid showing here. All right, good. Streams. Whoops. There we go. So, okay. So we have the album Dolby Atmos renderer and the Dolby Atmos album assembler. So the Dolby Atmos renderer is the thing that is going to be processing the Atmos feed from the album assembler. So right now, this is set to input. So this is basically going to show me what's happening when I play back records in the album assembler. So I'm going to open up the album assembler, and you can see that this lit up. So it's showing that they are connected. It's connected via local host, meaning I'm using the same machine. Sometimes you'll do this where you're processing your Atmos on another machine, but I'm doing it all on one machine. And I'm going to go here to File, and I'm going to open Project, and I'm going to open up the Vacuum State Assembler version 2. So you can see I finished these records December 16th, 2024. So it's going to import all of the audio tracks as well as stereo reference files. It looks like there's one thing that's missing here for whatever reason. I was messing with this yesterday. This thing needs a lot of work too, Dolby. I mean, I don't know. This is like just rough. You can see it's loading in. These are the multi-track Atmos with all the beds and objects. And then these are stereo versions. And what I can do is I can gain down the stereo versions to make sure that we're matching the volume of the Atmos mixes. So all the processing that we're doing to the Atmos mixes isn't just, oh, it's louder, right? Or it's quieter. So we're gain reducing. Nothing is happening to the stereo files. They're just there for audio reference. So if I click on this first one, this is going to be the first song on the album. This is Cannons. So this is the Atmos mix, and here's the stereo mix. So you can do limiting, LFE adjustment, as well as EQ in here. And this, for me right now, is kind of like the final touch mastering part of the process. Again, there's too many steps. It's just nuts. So this is also where I'm checking my levels. I want to make sure that my integrated level is not over minus 18. And in this case, it's not. It's minus 18.4. That is the most important thing. So when I hit play, let's hope this plays through for you guys. Yep, it does. It's going to be a little bit quieter because the volume's quieter too. I could gain up, but at least I can talk over it. So right now you're hearing the Atmos binaural render. So what it's doing is it's taking it, the Atmos, and feeding it down into a binaural render. These are all the objects. And now what we can do is we can switch to the stereo reference. So the first thing I notice, if you're wearing headphones or you'll notice this. If you're on speakers, you might hear an EQ change, but you're not going to notice what's happening. But the Atmos mix feels like it's more forward because of how it's being placed, whereas the stereo mix just sounds like it's coming from your headphones. So that's the first thing I notice when I play them. Shut the cursor. To be honest, I'm listening just now, and again, I could have messed this up because I made a version for this, but this feels not as good as the the stereo mix. I think the stereo mix sounds sonically better when I compare them next to each other. Now, if I just listen to this one. Let me get to the present. Tonally they're different. They just sound the Atmos mix is a little bit more nasally. I'm not gaining up any mid range. It just happens to be what's happening and how it sounds. Yeah, so that's the process. It's really kind of a lot of work. How many people are actually going to listen to the Atmos mixes? I'm really not sure, right? We focused most of our attention on the stereo mixes and then did the Atmos thing. In the room, these mixes sound really good, right? Like it's a tuned room, and It's I put the picture away, but it sounds great in the space. But when listening to it binaurally, it's just not the same experience. It really isn't. And I, until you spend most of your attention mixing the binaural and really trying to make that the record, I feel like it's just a gimmick still. I've had some conversations with some engineers who like do a lot of Atmos, and obviously they're like really into it. But I don't know. Let's listen to another tune real quick. We'll just listen to Burnt a second. These are closer. That's the Atmos. It's really wide. The Atmos mix on this song feels snappier to me. Equinox. I like the tone of this one. So that's the process. I don't know. Hopefully this was helpful, educational. Again, these are just tools. Whatever you do with it is up to you. But when you're doing Atmos, this is the big thing. Minus 18. Don't go over minus 18. The binaural is clipping here. I don't know. Maybe I screwed something up. It should be fine though. This is the record. It's out at midnight tonight. Starkey, Vacuum State. There's going to be there was going to be a streaming thing. I don't know if here, listening party. May 18th. When is that? That's Sunday at 7 o'clock Eastern. If you want to jump on here and listen to the record with other people, hopefully people join in. We're going to do a little chat as well. That's happening on Sunday. If you're in the Denver area, the record release party is June 13th at Black Box with some pals who are really good producers and DJs. Buxmole is doing a live set that night, I think, so even cooler. And I'm going to continue doing these streams. The next one I'm going to do, I'll announce some point over the weekend probably, but I think I'm going to do a breakdown of my remix of Centauri's Shark. That's available pre-order on Android's Dungeon Radio as well, and it's a killer dubstep record, and my remix is pretty mean, but it also gets very musical. So I'm thinking that's going to be the next one. He said it's cool that I stream the tune. So that'll probably be the next one. So yeah, I think that's it for today. Get the record if you want the vinyl. Add it to your Apple Music, Spotify. Buy the digital, however you get your music. Check it out tonight. I think it's a very cool record. If you've been watching these, you've heard all the tunes except for two. What else happened this week? Oh, something else happened this week. Just real quick. We got a premiere of Cannon's. Yeah, so it's a premiere of Cannon's. Obviously, you can listen to it on Bandcamp as well. But that dropped earlier this week. Thanks, Liam. Liam says, can't wait for it. Yeah, I'm pretty excited. I like the record a lot. I think it's fun. More stuff coming soon. I will obviously be announcing stuff as it comes. But yeah, I think that'll be it for today. I got to go back to mixing and producing other records that sound nothing like this. So thanks everyone for joining in. Thanks for all the new people joining in, saying what's up in the chat. Appreciate it. If you have other audio nerd friends who are interested in stuff like this, share the link with them. Tell them to follow and all that kind of stuff. I hate when people are like and subscribe. Like, just, whatever. If you, I think we all know you'll do that if you want to follow along. Thanks, Smooth J says thank you for sharing. Have a great day. Yeah, it was fun. It stopped raining here and the sun is sort of out. It's been raining in Philadelphia for like 5 days straight, and my kids are supposed to have baseball and softball tonight. You guys know what I think about baseball and softball. I think I don't know. It's all right. It's support the kids, but it's not soccer. So, anyways, it's been fun. Enjoy the rest of your Thursday. Take care, everyone. See ya.